สวัสดีครับมาพบกับรายการฝรั่งขี้นกสอนภาษาไทยนี่คือตอนที่4นะครับอันนี้เป็นวิดีโอที่เกี่ยวกับคำถามที่คนไทยมักจะตั้งให้ฝรั่งที่คือที่จริงแล้ววิดีโอนั้นชื่อtypical questions upon arrival in Thailand ก็คือคำถามที่มักจะมีคนไทยมาถามตอนที่เราเพิ่งไปถึงประเทศไทยแต่จริงๆแล้วนะครับอันนี้ผิดนิดๆเพราะว่าขนาดผมเคยไปอยู่ไทยเนี่ยรวมทั้งหมดมา1 ปีกับ2 เดือนอะไรอย่างเงี้ยแต่ว่ายังไงรู้สึกว่าอยู่นานแค่ไหนอยู่3 เดือนอยู่4 เดือนถ้าเจอคนใหม่ถ้าเจอคนแปลกหน้าแน่นอนอยู่แล้วยังไงก็ต้องตอบคำถามพวกนี้นะครับว่านะกินเผ็ดได้ไหมเรียนภาษาไทยยังไงอันนี้ลืมนะโอเคนี่คือวิดีโอภาค2นะครับก็คือคำถามต่อไปที่คนไทยมักจะตั้งมักจะถามเวลาเจอฝรั่งที่พูดภาษาไทยได้เป็นครั้งแรกไม่ใช่ว่าไปถึงเจอแต่ละคนเป็นครั้งแรกเจอผมเป็นครั้งแรกเจอเขาเป็นครั้งแรก right so first encounters what people will ask you okay so อย่างหนึ่งที่พูดถึงแล้วก็คือทำไมคุณพูดไทยเก่งจังทำไมคุณพูดไทยเก่งจัง why do you speak Thai so well alright I can't remember if I've actually uploaded any videos about this but my first week in Thailand maybe second week in Thailand เดี๋ยวผมเล่าเป็นภาษาไทยก็ได้ที่แรกที่ผมเคยอยู่ที่ประเทศไทยก็คือแบบ2008นะ2008กลางปี2008ผมไปไทยแล้วก็อยู่ที่กรุงเทพแล้วก็กำลังจะขึ้นลิฟต์แล้วก็เห็นผู้หญิงคนหนึ่งอยู่กับลูกสาวเขาลูกชายแล้วก็ลูกชายก็ส่งแบบยิ้มส่งมาให้แบบยิ้มให้เราแล้วก็ก็เลยนะพยักหน้าแล้วก็บอกกับแม่เขาว่าสวัสดีครับ All I said to this lady getting on the elevator was สวัสดีครับ and she said to me โอ๊ยทำไมพูดไทยเก่งจังSo back then I wasn't really sure how you should deal with these things, and so I would sort of just answer the things the way I would in my own language, and either just be like, oh, ขอบคุณครับ or after a while I'd get sort of tired of these things, and I'd be like, อ้าวผมยังนอกจากสวัสดีครับจะชมว่าเก่งทำไมครับยังไม่เห็นเลยว่าผมพูดได้มากแค่ไหน But then I realized, oh, saying this is kind of arrogant, right? It's like you haven't even seen how good I am yet.Which it doesn't maybe sound that arrogant in English. You haven't even seen what I can do, right? But maybe when we change it to เก่งมากน้อยแค่ไหน which gives us the possibility of not being good too. It still is critical. It's critical to the other person saying, why would you say that? Which that's just overall not something you do in Thai. You don't critique your interlocutor. You don't critique the person you're talking to that openly. Like, why would you say that?Unless you're close, right? So someone you don't know, it might be a little strange to say, especially if they're older than you, right? So like a lot of times I would say something like, อ้าวผมก็พูดแค่สวัสดีครับไม่เห็นจะน่าประทับใจเลยครับ and then usually then they'll do this whole they're super impressed with the fact that you can speak Thai thing. Well, I mean, you can do that, but then you kind of turn yourself into a freak show. Because they're like, they're impressed by your Thai, but at the same time it's really clear that you don't really get how to deal with them.I don't know. So there's a few things you can do. If somebody says, "Oh, พูดไทยเก่งมาก," you can. Some of the really good responses I've gotten are to simply sort of smile and just look away a little bit. Just do that little, little low nod thing, like, sort of a gracious sort of nod. That can work. You can get away with that, or you might get away with just saying, "Oh, ขอบคุณครับ." But for me, I've actually found that the better I get, the more deflective I get of the compliments. The more I have to say, อ๋อเปล่าครับจริงๆแล้วยังต้องเรียนอีกเยอะมากเลยครับคือพอพูดได้นะแต่ว่าผมก็ต้องฝึกหัดต่อไปอีกมากนะครับ something like this, right? So because it's the truth. For one thing, it's the truth. The more you learn of a foreign language, the more you realize, wow.The more I get like feel like I'm reaching the top, the more I realize I'm actually reaching like level 2 of what it would take to be 10 in a native speaker's level, right? Because communicating, being fluent, and having native fluency are really different ball games. Okay, it's not different. They're not just different levels. There are totally different ways of thinking. You have to be advanced as a communicative speaker before you can even think about jumping into the world of fluency. Now, once you've jumped into the world of fluency, you've got to float around there for a long time. That's where I think I'm floating. I'm not a native speaker level in Thai by any means. No, I can communicate pretty freely, but I can't do everything with full confidence, and I can't teach Thai people Thai, right? It's not that confident, okay? So that's kind of what I'm talking about here, right? So there's these different levels, and I feel like the higher you go up, the more you realize that you've got a long way to go. You realize that the way is much longer to go than you may have originally thought. And I think that might be what contributes to me doing this, but another thing is just knowing that as a white person, you have a tendency to be viewed as an arrogant as ying. Just because you're white in Thailand, there's a tendency to do this. And if you want to argue with me on this, you can, but I said tendency. I didn't say everyone does, okay? And I think there's absolutely a tendency for people to see a white person and think that this person is going to be full of themselves. Especially because a lot of things that are in the West read as confidence are read as arrogance in Thai culture, and maybe in Asian culture in general. But sometimes just self-assurance, sort of being challenging things, trying to get your point across no matter what. These things can be seen as arrogant, aggressive, pushy. So you have to really be careful of these things. All right. So this is all just talking about how to answer a question. Sort of to accept a compliment. I've had a lot of problems accepting compliments in Thai, and as a foreigner, it's strange because Thai people don't really give compliments like willy-nilly like Americans do. But when they meet foreigners, they start complimenting like crazy. And I'm aware that it has to do with the tourist culture, right? Oh, well, I want you to buy this stuff, so I want you to be on my side, so I'm going to tell you that that looks nice. It's not Thailand that made this up. Thailand didn't make this up. This is business culture, right? I mean, people who needed money will lie lie about little personal things and shit that doesn't matter so that they can get your buck. And I don't think that's amoral. I just think that has an effect then on the way that people interact with me, even when I'm not in a tourist. I'm not acting as a tourist. I'm not identifying as a tourist or presenting myself as a tourist, right? I'm just presenting myself as somebody who's there as a visitor. Yet I still get treated as if, right? I have this that there's this need to constantly compliment me, and I just I almost like when I finally know that I get to know people well enough is when they start criticizing me. When they stop saying, "โหนี่ภาษาไทยรู้หมดเลยนะ." When they stop saying that and they say, โหแต่บางทีนะมันก็งงนะคือฟังออกก็95%นะแต่บางทีก็ฟังไม่ออกนะบางทีก็งงถ้าหลายคนคุยกันอะไรเงี้ยอาจจะมีปัญหาจะไม่ได้จับความหมายไม่ครบอะไรเงี้ย When I see this, I understand that people are looking at me for what I am, what my abilities are. Not just the fact that I have a clear Thai accent, or not the fact that I can communicate, right? But what I really do with the language, how I can get around and how I can't get around, and looking at that, it's not a compliment, it's not a criticism. It's just stating the way things are, and I'm okay with that a lot more than I am accepting a blatantly sometimes surface compliment. So if you're that way, if you don't like surface compliments or you feel like they're just too much because you understand that Thai people don't do them, like I said, you can just smile. The smile and a little nod is nice, right? And maybe a little krap or ka, depending on your gender and on your gender identification. But it's basically about that, right? Is that trying to understand to strike a balance between not totally rejecting the compliment, like จะชมผมทำไมไม่อยากให้ชมนะ. Right, that's just a little bit wild. I don't even want you to compliment me. But at the same time, okay, doesn't need to be that, oh, ขอบคุณมากครับ right? It's not that serious, because sometimes they're just complimenting out of politeness, just like we do. I think it has to do with the Thai Farang interaction. Next question, this will be the only other question I really talk about. I don't know how it is for Farang women, and I have a friend who's on here, Mina or Bettina Friedrich, who she has talked to me a few times about stuff like this, and she's been living in Thailand for I think 5-6 years now, maybe even 7. Has a Thai boyfriend, and I hope this isn't too much information, Mina. I hope that's okay. But I'm not gonna say names or anything other than her name, because she is on YouTube, so you can go find her if you want. But in any case, she and I talked about this a little bit, and I'd be interested to see from more from her perspective as well as other Farang women. What has your experience been as far as do they ask you about ผู้ชายไทยเป็นยังไง right? Because almost every new person I meet will ask me either แล้วผู้หญิงไทยชอบไหม Do you like Thai women, or ผู้หญิงไทยสวยไหม right? ผู้หญิงไทยเป็นไงบ้าง All these different questions. And for me it's offensive. for me, it's quite offensive because I love my girlfriend, but I don't love Thai women. That's gross. Oh, you're Thai. I love you because you're Thai. I don't function like that. And ผมก็ไม่ได้แบบว่าอ๋อผู้หญิงไทยสวยกันหมดหรือผู้หญิงไทยโดยส่วนใหญ่สวยคือไม่ได้มองอย่างนั้นน่ะมันไม่สำคัญสำหรับผมแต่ผมไม่ได้คิดว่ามันควรจะเป็นสิ่งที่กระตุ้นให้เกิดความรู้สึกชาตินิยมทางชาตินิยมมากขึ้นเรื่อยๆแค่เพราะแล้วถือว่าชาติตัวเองมีผู้หญิงสวยก็ดีคือ I think there's a big problem with this whole obsession with Thai women being pretty and Thai women being like this source of pleasure for Western men. I mean, have I had Thai girlfriends before my current girlfriend? Yes. Have there been times when I said to myself, because I felt so guilty about this Western image of foreigners in Thailand, this Thai image of foreigners, I'm not going to date Thai girls anymore. I'm tired of being asked if the only reason I know Thai is because I have a Thai girlfriend. I'm tired of being treated as if the only way that I could ever have access to Thai is to have sexual intercourse with a Thai woman and have her then show me the country. That's not the only way to learn Thailand. Have I had Thai girlfriends who've helped me learn Thai? Yes. Was that the only reason I learned? No. Did I start learning because I wanted to be with a Thai girl? No. Did I then, when I had a girlfriend, learn a lot more because I wanted to be able to say more things to her? Did I learn words that were situated to her vocabulary? Absolutely. Of course, that's natural. But, I don't know. It's just really frustrating that it has to be so, goal-based, but at the same time, in defense of Thai culture, which I think is kind of an overly monolithicized entity, but we'll talk about that later, I think it's a matter of sort of roles, and because we talked about it, the foreigner has such a clear-cut role in Thailand because he, and I will say he, for the most part it is a he, comes and has rampant wild sex with whatever he chooses, men, women, transgender, whatever the hell he chooses, and he does it for a cheap price. He does it at will. Oh, and he also can come and do business for, with nice laissez-faire set up for him so that he can make lots of money, exploit lots of profits, but at the same time be able to take those profits and use them in a place where his currency has more value than it normally would, right? So going back to Farang Kii Nok, right, that might be exactly what we want to think of when we talk about Farang Kii Nok in the negative aspect of it, all right? So, maybe you want to avoid that picture. I don't know. How do you answer? How do you answer when someone says ผู้หญิงไทยสวยไหม You can't say ไม่สวยครับผมว่าไม่สวยเท่าไหร่ Because if you do that, then มันเป็นการดูถูก It's an insult, right? เป็นการดูถูก But if you say อ๋อชอบมากครับผู้หญิงไทยสวยมาก You don't know. You don't know what that Thai person's thinking. Guaranteed they're going to smile and go, อ๋อสวยเนาะสวยเนาะสวยใช่ไหม Right? You don't know what that means. This person might go behind your back and they might say, อีเนี่ยนะมาประเทศไทยเพื่อที่จะเอากับผู้หญิงไทยอย่างเดียวนะ This person came to Thailand just to have sex with Thai women. They might say this. I've heard this. Okay? So Thai people don't come on here and say, ไม่หรอกคนไทยไม่พูดอย่างนั้นนะคนไทยบางคนพูดสิครับคนไทยบางคนไม่พูดนะ Thailand is not does this, does that. No. There is especially in terms of Farang, na, it is, I don't want to say 50-50, but it feels that way. It feels like your chances of meeting someone who are really nice to you because you're a Farang are just as good as meeting someone who hates you because you're a Farang, and are just as good as meeting someone who couldn't care less because you're a Farang, right? Although I think maybe the third one is probably the least common, right? Either they like you or they don't like you. They don't usually have this total neutral, oh, you're a Farang, so what kind of thing, right? There's usually some kind of assessment, some kind of evaluation. Alright, so I still haven't really told you how to answer this question right? I usually answer it with, บางคนก็สวยครับบางคนไม่สวยเหมือนทุกที่ครับ right? Which, this is a maxim that I kind of hate. I hate the, pretty girls here and there, everywhere, all over the world kind of shit. It's just really overgeneralized, but Thai people do say this kind of thing a lot, right? ต่างคนต่างคิดต่างคนต่างความเข้าใจ right? Different people, different things, different strokes for different folks, different thoughts, all this stuff. So saying this is not wrong. And or you could just say มันแล้วแต่คนครับมันแล้วแต่ผู้หญิงไทยคนไหน right? You could say this too. It depends on which Thai girl, right? Something that and I think that gives them at least an idea that you don't think Thailand is just full of one kind of thing, which is probably good. I think so. But at the same time, some people just want you to say that Thai women are beautiful, and they just want to sit there and talk about how beautiful Thai women are. So you have to sort of gauge with who you're talking about. Just, think about it. if it's some old taxi driver who's saying สาวไทยสวยไหมสาวไทยสวยปะI usually just say ก็สวยครับ because I'm not in the mood to be like ก็โอเคนะครับ because I know if I say ก็โอเคครับ he'll say แล้วในเอเชียล่ะสาวประเภทไหนสวยสุด I don't want to answer you which country I think has the hottest Asian women. Like, that's just, I'm sorry, I'm not interested in that. But if you want to answer that, then you can answer him very clearly. You know, you can have these conversations. I'm not saying you should do this, you should do that. I'm saying if you want this, you should probably not do this or should do that. If you don't want this, you shouldn't do this, you should do that. These kind of things, okay? I'm not saying this is the right way to do things. I'm just out for you, right? Like I think it all goes back to the idea of Farang Kii Nok. It all depends on who's watching. It all depends on who is criticizing you and who's deciding that you are Farang Kii Nok, why they're calling you it, and whether that's positive. I mean, it's usually negative, right? Or whether it's just a joke, or whether it's, you know, it really is just like, huh, look at this guy, he just doesn't give a shit, right? I mean, it could be all of these things, and it all depends on how you present yourself, how you react to the words, how you use the words. All of this stuff is important. It's all imbricated, right? It's all built within the system of cultural interaction and engagement. All right? So รู้ว่าวันนี้ไม่ได้พูดภาษาไทยในวิดีโอนี้ไม่ได้พูดภาษาไทยเท่าไหร่นะครับส่วนใหญ่ก็เป็นภาษาอังกฤษเพราะว่ากังวลว่าถ้าใช้ภาษาไทยเยอะเกินไปผู้ชมหลายคนอาจจะตกประเด็นไม่รู้ว่าพูดถึงเรื่องอะไรครับก็เลยอธิบายเป็นภาษาอังกฤษเดี๋ยววันหลังจะพยายามพูดภาษาไทยให้มากขึ้นนะครับให้มากกว่านี้นะครับโอเคขอบคุณครับทุกคนสวัสดีครับ